Well, we've been doing a sermon series looking at the early life of Jesus, or looking at the earthly life of Jesus, in more or less chronological order. And of course, we had to skip over many of the events of Jesus' life. This sermon series is long enough as it is. If we did each and every event of Jesus' life that's recorded in the Gospels, why, we'd still be in this sermon series next year. And of course, the Bible tells us that there are a great many things that Jesus said and did that are not recorded in the Gospels. And of course, there's no way we can cover those things. But now, we're very close to the end of Jesus' earthly life. We're told that what we read today takes place 6 days before the Passover, the last Passover that Jesus would celebrate on earth. It's the day before he would ride into Jerusalem in triumph on a donkey, what we now celebrate as Palm Sunday. By the way, that's a little foreshadowing of what we might be talking about next week. But on this day, Jesus is with his friends, Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And we're told there are some other people there too. Now, we don't know how long this is after Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, but it looks like it was probably not very long. And we're told that a dinner is being given in Jesus' honor. Now, we don't know if that dinner is a thank you for raising Lazarus from the dead, if it's just being done in recognition of what they know as a fact, that Jesus is the divine Son of God. We don't know why they are giving a dinner in Jesus' honor, but they are. And after dinner comes the event that makes this story memorable. Mary takes a pint of pure nard, pours it on Jesus' feet, and wipes his feet with her hair. Now, in case you're wondering, nard is an oil. And what I read is it comes from a plant that's variously known as spikenard or nardin, and you can still buy it. It still is expensive as well. On Amazon, 30 milliliters, about 6 tablespoons, sells for $46.15. And it's said to have a musky and a woody aroma. It's supposed to soothe the nerves, quiet the mind, and lead to an overall tranquil feeling. So with that in mind, it's pretty clear that Jesus' friends could see that Jesus had something on his mind, that there was something bothering him. Now, we don't know whether they really understood what it was. Maybe they did, maybe they did not. But they knew there was something. And so they did what they could for him. Lazarus sat and talked with him. Martha prepared a meal for him. And Mary washed his feet with nard, something that she hoped would help Jesus relax and take his mind off his problems, even if it was just for a little while. And when you think about it, that's pretty much what we do for people today when we know they're going through a hard time, isn't it? We go and visit them. We take a meal over for them. We try to do something, if we can, that's just going to help them relax and take their mind off their problems, even if it's just for a little while. And of course, whenever somebody does something like this, there are always the naysayers. I guess it's just human nature. Whenever you try to do something nice for somebody, it seems like there's always someone who will say you did not do the right thing, or you did not do it at the right time, or you did not do it the right way, or something. There's always somebody. In this case, it was Judas. He says, in effect, why are you wasting this expensive oil, this expensive stuff? Why did you not just sell it and give the money to the poor? Now, we're told that Judas did not really care about the poor, that he wanted the money put into the treasury so he could take it for himself. But you know, there had to be some other people there who were thinking that same thing, don't you think? Maybe even some of the disciples were thinking that same thing. Why didn't we just save this money, use it for something else? You know, everybody's a critic, it seems like. But that is when Jesus reveals what was on his mind. He says it was intended that Mary should save this perfume to prepare him for his burial. And as we think about the earthly life of Jesus, I would think this had to be one of the hardest nights that Jesus ever spent on this earth. Because Jesus knows what's going to happen next. He knows that tomorrow he's going to ride into Jerusalem to the cheering of the crowds, and he knows how the Jewish authorities are going to react to that. Now, Jesus has known all along what's going to happen to him. In fact, he's told people about it. But now, the time has come. It's here. Jesus knows that the next day, he is going to set in motion a series of events from which there is no turning back. This is the road that inevitably leads to the cross. Now, it does not appear that Jesus is faltering in this. He is determined to go through with it, but still, this is hard. This is probably as hard a thing as there is to do, to deliberately and willfully go down a path that you know is going to lead to your death. And not just to your death, but a death that's going to be very painful, a death that's going to be very humiliating, a death that's going to be caused in part by your betrayal by one of your best friends. Simply does not come much harder than that. Can you think of a time when you have been faced with doing a really hard thing? I'm sure some of us can. Maybe you're faced with it right now. A time when you knew there was something you knew you had to do, but it was about the last thing in the world you really wanted to do. You were dreading it. You were wishing that somehow, some way you could get out of it, but you knew there really was no choice. It was necessary, and you had to go ahead and do it. There was no alternative, but still, you sure did not want to. That's a pretty lonely feeling, right? Because this is something you know you have to do yourself. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody can even do it with you. You have to do it yourself. There's nothing that you or anybody else can do about it. This is why we ask for people to pray for those who feel alone. Because feeling alone is not necessarily about being by yourself. It's not even necessarily about not having friends. It can be about those things. But sometimes, this is what feeling alone really is. Knowing that you have to go through something that's really hard, something you don't want to do, and knowing that you have to do it yourself. And that's why we all need to be there for each other. Because even when you have to do something yourself, you don't necessarily have to do it by yourself. There may be nobody who can do it for you. There may not even be anybody who can do it with you. But there are people who can be alongside you. There are people who can support you. There are people who can encourage you. There are people who can show you that they love you and that they care about you and that they will be there for you no matter what happens. But here's the thing about that. Lazarus and Martha and Mary did what they could for Jesus. They were there for him as much as they could be. But for that to happen, Jesus had to put himself into a place where they could be there for him. Jesus had to agree to go to their house. He had to agree to allow this meal to be held for him. He had to agree to let them help him. Because so many times, when we're in a situation like this, we're tempted to just withdraw. We're tempted to just close up. We think, well, nothing really that anybody can do for me anyway. Besides, they've all got their own problems. They really don't have the time to help me. Anyway, I'm an adult. I should be able to handle this by myself. It's just too embarrassing to admit that I cannot handle it by myself. I should not need anyone else. I don't need anybody else. I should just grit my teeth and get through this on my own. That's not what God wants for us. I've said this before, but God puts us into groups, into communities, into churches, so that we can be there for each other, so that we can help each other. If you're going through a tough time, if you're facing something you don't want to face, there are people who want to be there for you. For them to do that, you have to let them know. Even Jesus could not face the hard things of this life alone. If Jesus could not do it, why do you and I expect to be able to? We really cannot do it, and we're really not supposed to try. We need each other. That's why God put us into each other's lives. Each one of us here, we're all in each other's lives because we need each other. You are all in my life because I need you. Wanda and I are in your lives because sometimes you need us. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant. It's just the way it is. That we all need each other. That's the way it works. It's how it's supposed to work. When Jesus was facing something hard, he needed other people. When you and I are facing something hard, we need other people too. So may we all be there for each other and support each other and encourage each other. May we all help each other through life, because that's why God put us together. That is how it's all supposed to work. Amen.